What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Couch Coach Podcast slash YouTube if you're viewing on that platform. Super excited for part two of the best matchups for every week of college football. Um, in the last episode, in part one, we left off here at Miami versus Clemson. Um, it was a super fun video, super fun for me to record, super fun for me to prepare. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. I was supposed to record this part two last week on Thursday, but we were without power for like 2 days. There's some storms rolling through Florida right now. Um, we had some trees fall on the power lines near our house, and so that kind of messed up my plans for recording. But we're back, and I saw that there was a couple of comments on the jersey video, actually the best jersey combinations in college football. I responded to both of you. I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like the videos, subscribe to the channel. One of the guys included what team he was a fan of. I thought that was super cool. So if you do leave a comment, maybe just like throw it down there in the bottom of what team you're a fan of, because I would like to see kind of like what fan bases are the most prominent on social platforms. I think that that's always been like a topic of discussion, like which fan bases are the craziest on social media. So he was an Ohio State fan, so he's probably been pretty happy the last couple of years. But anyways, we left off in part one with Miami and Clemson, and we're gonna go ahead and move forward to the next team or the next matchup, which is Georgia and Alabama. There's not a lot to say about this game. I do think that this game is going to be very important for Alabama. I mean, truthfully, it's Georgia's game to lose. Georgia's the more physical team. Georgia's the more experienced team. They have better pieces. Obviously, Alabama loses some very nice pieces on their defensive line in the transfer portal. Ty Simpson goes to the draft. I mean, they're not decimated, but they're definitely weaker than we've seen Alabama in the last couple of years. Um, they're, in my opinion, one of the franchises, or not franchises, sorry, one of the teams that are kind of coming out of their dynasty period. I don't think that necessarily means that Alabama will be bad. I just think that that means we'll see. It won't be the year after year after year of dominance that we're used to seeing. I have a couple of Alabama fans in my family, and they are all kind of worried about the direction that they seem to be going in. But yeah, as you can see here on the screen, I have Georgia with the quarterback advantage. Gunnar Stockton over Keelan Russell. I think Keelan Russell, as a freshman, there's an adjustment period that he's going to have to go through, and playing Georgia in the middle of your season can really disrupt that, especially with how physical this defense is. Um, they're hard nosed in the trenches. They hit hard. That's obviously something that Kirby Smart prides himself and his team on, is the fact that they hit and they deliver. Um, this Georgia team's just always solid, and I don't see anything changing that this upcoming year. Um, Georgia just has the advantage in almost every category. If they play physically, we saw what happened whenever Alabama got hit in the mouth in games last year. They kind of crumble a little bit. Obviously, you know, they came out against Florida State in week one, and it didn't work out for Florida State, but a physical defense hurt Alabama a lot. We seen it in the playoffs. Indiana, that defense just got physical with them, and it seemed like they couldn't really handle it. So I don't see Georgia having any issues here. I think Georgia takes this one. If Alabama is somehow to win, I think this is their ticket to the playoff. If Alabama really wants to be a for sure locked and loaded playoff team this year, they're going to have to win this game against Georgia, along with a game or two on their schedule as well. This is going to be a great game. Um, got to see them play last year. Indiana, Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State doesn't end the season the way they wanted. They lose the Big Ten championship to Indiana, then lose in the playoffs to Miami, which was obviously kind of a surprise to a lot of people. But I do think that Ohio State has the advantage here in the quarterback department, in the offense. Obviously, with Jeremiah Smith, Chris Henry Jr., Bo Jackson, we know that they have some insane pieces. Their defense is going to be, um, I don't think it's fair to hold this defense to the same expectations that you held them to last year. If any of you are familiar with the NFL or NFL draft or pay attention to that, you know that they had a lot of defensive players going to the draft, a lot of talent, very high draft picks. I mean, it would be almost impossible for this defense to come back as strong as they were last year. We've seen Ohio State do things like that before, so it's possible. Um, but yeah, I do think that Indiana has the defensive advantage. And that's really going to be what it comes down to for Indiana if they're going to win this game. They have transfer quarterback Josh Hoover coming in. I think this style of offense is going to fit him well, the RPO. Like Kurt Signetti said in his press conference at the beginning of their spring training, um, Josh Hoover's found his two new best friends, a strong run game and a good defense. So, I mean, with that, the knock on Josh Hoover coming into this season is that he was kind of a turnover machine. And I think that with that powerful run game, a strong defense, he is going to be able to settle in well, and I think that he will be able to mitigate the turnover issues. Um, but obviously, a quarterback coming onto a new team, we know can. Um, this is his first year on the roster. We just saw Fernando Mendoza win the Heisman at his first year on the Hoosier roster, so I'm not going to say it's impossible, but most quarterbacks, it can be challenging to grasp an offense and to perform at a high level, especially with the turnover issues that he's had in the past that can sometimes come up for quarterbacks, even though it seems like they've gotten past those things when you play against a good team. Those nerves, the expectation, it can be a little difficult. If the Indiana defense performs, then I think that Indiana will most definitely be able to win this game. But if the Indiana defense is not perfect and this offense doesn't play very safe football, and they somehow allow Ohio State to catch an interception or, Hoover fumbles in the pocket, then this is going to be a walk in the park for Ohio State. If they can win that turnover battle, I think one turnover changes this game completely. If Ohio State gets up by two touchdowns, then they're going to run away with it. I like Ohio State in this game. I love Indiana. I love the team. I love the Kurt Cignetti story. But you just can't expect them to be perfect like they were last year. I mean, that's such a rare thing um, that they accomplished last year. And I'm not saying they're going to be bad this year. I do think that they're a locked and loaded playoff team, probably competing for the Big Ten championship. But we know what Ohio State is. We know that they do it year after year. I think that we can expect them to win this game. I tried not to back too many teams, but we have Indiana here again going on the road to Michigan. This could be a trap game. This has trap game written all over it. You're going into Michigan. They have a whole new coaching staff, a lot of turnover. Um, Obviously, we don't have to talk about what happened with Sherrone Moore and all of that drama. They bring in Kyle Whittingham as the head coach, and Kyle Whittingham brings his guys. Bryce Underwood in year two. There's lots of things to like about this Michigan team. Um, and I think that that could perfectly play into their hands at home. I think Indiana has the upper hand and on every side of the ball, on offense, defense, and quarterback. They have the upper hand. But when you go to a place like Michigan, where you're in their home stadium, they're hungry for what they missed out on last year. They know they disappointed, and they're bringing it back. And a guy like Kyle Whittingham is always just, he's always had a good team. Obviously, he has been at Utah for the last little bit. Thought he was going to retire. Michigan loses their coach, and I think he kind of saw an opportunity to come. And I can't remember his exact quote, but he basically said, like, I just never had the resources at Utah that I'm going to have here at Michigan. And that's true. Michigan's going to put a lot more into their football team, I'd imagine, than Utah. Um, so, like I said, if Michigan can get some pressure on Josh Hoover, if they can make this game difficult for that offense, then they have a real shot here. Bryce Underwood can do some magical things. I love that they have the home environment. I think this will be a great game. For Indiana, it's all about stopping Bryce Underwood. Can you mitigate the run? I think you have to leave a spy on him pretty much all game. If even the smallest mistake of letting Bryce Underwood leak the pocket at a crucial time in this game could change the entire outcome. Um, so I do like Indiana, but I don't want to downplay the fact that this is a very winnable game for Michigan. If they come out of the gates looking hot at the beginning of the year, they carry it into this and they get Indiana at home. So very winnable game for Michigan, but it does Indiana is the better football team here. Ohio State and USC. USC, very excited to see how this team turns out this year. Um, there's, this is a team that's been building for a while. Um, you know, not necessarily had the outcome that they've wanted the last couple of years, but you have Jaden Maiava, somebody that is coming back with lots of experience. Um, but you're playing Ohio State. This USC is a team that a lot of people think will make the playoffs this year. This will be a big deciding factor for them. If they can play well in this game and win this game, then I think that they definitely have a shot. Um, Obviously, Julian Sain is the better quarterback over Jaden Maiava. The offense over there for Ohio State, I mean, there's not probably a more star-studded offense in college football, so there's that. The defense, once again, we've talked about Ohio State a ton. Um, this game's gonna be very fun to watch. I think Ohio State, if they can just pound the run, pound the run, pound the run, pound the run, they're gonna be just fine. For USC and Jaden Maiava, you cannot turn this ball over. Every chance you get on offense has to be like perfect. You have to be so clean with the football. You have to make mitigate your bad mistakes, and you've got to get the ball in the end zone. Once you get in the red zone, you have to turn those things into touchdowns. If USC is going to beat this Ohio State team, like I said, I think this game has big playoff implications for USC, and that's why I have this game as my biggest matchup of the week. Um, but yeah, this game will be super fun to watch no matter the outcome. I think these two offenses, it'll probably turn into a shootout. It's going to be super fun. This game is I wouldn't even really call it a sleeper. I think everybody's very aware of why this game will be super important for the season of college football this year. Um, Obviously Miami and Notre Dame played last year. Notre Dame lost back-to-back games against basically the only two good teams on their schedule, which was Miami and Texas A&M, and were left out of the playoffs. They, you know, felt like they were robbed. They pouted and sat out of um, their bowl game that they were invited to. Not particularly fond of that decision to not play in that game. Um, so yeah, let's get into this breakdown here. Darian Mensah and CJ Carr. I understand that CJ Carr, he has all of the hype and he has all of this expectation. I just think that what Darian Mensah accomplished last year was far and beyond what CJ Carr was able to do. And so I gave him the upper hand here in the quarterback battle. The offense, obviously, Notre Dame loses both of their running backs, so they have to replace their Miami basically returning all of their key players except for CJ Daniels. They return Mark Fletcher, Malachi Tony, and on defense, Miami's defensive line is just it's always good. It's that defensive line, those edge rushers, they just always have guys there. It's one of Cristobal's specialties. He just always has a good defense. Um, the key for this game, I have Malachi Tony and Leonard Moore. That matchup decides this entire game. And this game is extremely important for Notre Dame. If Notre Dame loses this game, that could honestly be the difference in them making the playoffs or not because this is the best team that they play all year. And outside of that, it's like there's almost nothing. I'm not, I I don't know. I feel like what Notre Dame is doing is bad for the sport. I feel like they're pouting. Um, Obviously, they play these two games against Miami and Texas A&M last year. They lost them. They were left out of the playoffs, and rightfully so. It was between Miami and Notre Dame who was going to get in. Miami has the head-to-head. You can't pout over that. If you wanted to get in, you should have beat Miami. I'm a Florida State fan, and I can say that. That's how it works. If you want to get in, you beat the teams that are ahead of you and Notre Dame didn't. And it's plain and simple. They come into this year and they make this crap cupcake schedule, and they get this sympathy from the playoff committee for being an independent, where the new rule is if they're anywhere in the top 12, they get a guaranteed independent spot in the playoffs, which is stupid. Um, Notre Dame they just need to join a conference and do it like everybody else does it. They don't need special treatment. They don't need all this BS. They just need to win football games, which they've been great at. And I'm not trying to take away anything from the quality of team that Notre Dame is, but you have to win the games that matter. You can't just win 10 games against non-power 4 schools or, lesser schools and say, "Hey, we're 10 and 2." Well, yeah, your two losses are the only two good teams that you played. I mean, you have to do more than that. Um, so yeah, there's my rant on Notre Dame. That's how I feel about them. Um, I think that unfortunately, because I really like their coach, I like CJ Carr and what he could be as an NFL prospect. Um, but I don't like the way that last year was handled with them. Anyways, back to this game. Whoever wins that battle between Malachi Tony and Leonard Moore will decide who wins this football game. If Leonard Moore can lock down Malachi Tony, it's going to be very hard for this Miami team. If Leonard Moore can't stop Malachi Tony, then this is going to be a long game for Notre Dame. All Malachi Tony needs is a crease. You can take it from me because he done it to FSU plenty of times last year. Um, was pretty much unstoppable for 3 quarters. And I mean, it's plain and simple. That will decide it. Um, this is a huge matchup for Notre Dame. It's a huge matchup for Miami. Obviously, Notre Dame's probably pissed off and they want to come back and win this game. They get Miami in their house. South Bend's a hard place to play. Um, yeah, I think that Miami's just better than Notre Dame, and that's just it's gonna be what it is. Notre Dame does have a chance. There's not a huge gap between these two teams, but if Miami plays football the way that they did last year, and obviously bringing back those same pieces aside from your new quarterback, basically, um, they're a better football team than Notre Dame. Texas and LSU. This is a big game. Obviously, two big name schools, blue bloods, going at it. Um, this is going to be very fun. Arch Manning versus Sam Levitt, two guys that can do it all. They can run, they can throw, they can get things done. I think that Texas is going to have the advantage here on offense. Obviously, you know, quietly brought in an extremely good transfer portal class, including, the wide receiver from Auburn, Cam Coleman. I think that he's going to make a huge difference for Arch. Arch, you know, those wide receivers were slightly disappointing last year, and I think that that was very notable. Arch kind of needed somebody to step up, and this year he's going to have somebody in Cam Coleman who's been waiting for his opportunity. Did not get it at Auburn, always out on the field, but just the quarterback issues and things that were going on there. Not really something that you can hold against him. Um, so yeah, defense. Colin Simmons is a top 5 player in college football, in my opinion. At, at worst, maybe you bump him down to top 10. Um, he is gonna wreak havoc on um, on that offensive line. He's gonna wreak havoc in the backfield. Obviously, 20 plus sacks in 2 seasons of college football. If he gets to Levitt just a couple times in this game, then that will decide it. If Levitt, is breaking free and scrambling and converting a bunch of third downs, then this is going to be a very hard game for Texas. I think that Texas takes this game despite playing in LSU. Um, Texas has the better roster despite what everyone will tell you about LSU and everything that they brought in and how much money they spent. Um, Money doesn't equate to talent. It does, it's a reflection of, how much you're spending to get these players, but it doesn't directly correlate to the talent of those players. Sometimes you have to pay more for certain situations and things like that, and I think the LSU's paid a lot of money for this roster. Will they be good? I think they'll be very solid. But Texas, they've been saying they're back for years, and I think that this could really be a year that they actually will be able to say that they are really back. Went back to back again on a team. LSU and Tennessee. This is going to be a fun game. Um, Tennessee, obviously, they just get the commitment from the five-star running back over Ohio State, and I cannot remember his name right now. It's slipping my mind. Um, but for Tennessee, I think that that will be a key for them in this game is that running back. Can they establish the rush? Can ooh, dang, that was a nasty burp. Um, can they establish the run game? Can they play ball the way they want to play ball? It's going to be very hard against this LSU team. Um, if LSU's defense can get nasty and get mean and get back there and put some pressure on the quarterback over there in Tennessee, George McIntyre, then they're going to win this game. Um, this the reason I have it set as the biggest matchup of the week is because this is a must-win for LSU, in my opinion, to get in. If you get to this point and you have a loss against a team like a Texas or something, then you're gonna need a quality win over a team like Tennessee to really make your case to get into the college football playoff. The big game, Ohio State and Michigan. This is gonna be a crazy game. I think, um, I don't know, the environment is always crazy for this game. The build up to this game is insane. We know these two teams and the history they have and the hatred they have for each other. Um, this is going to be wild. I think Ohio State is a better football team, but this is once again where Michigan just drew really well this year with their conference schedule and they get Ohio State in Michigan's house. So I have the key here for Michigan, the environment. They need and they're going to do this. They do it every year. This game, the build up for this game has to be real. It's got to be huge. They have to really put an emphasis on, like, having the students come out, having this game. Like, I think it'd be really cool if they'd done like a blue out or a yellow out, or like I know sometimes they do the alternating blue yellow sections. Um, Anything like that would be super cool for them to come and bring that kind of environment will help significantly against this Ohio State team. Ohio State does have the advantage and, over in the quarterback department, offense and defense. Oh, whew. Man, a little tired today. Um, Stop Bryce Underwood in the red zone. When you get into the red zone is when Bryce Underwood and really any scrambling quarterback can be dangerous because, obviously you're protecting the end zone and if, one of these electric quarterbacks gets out of the backfield or gets out of the pocket and is scrambling, it can really mess things up down there in the red zone. So they have to play lockdown red zone D, um, have to protect the end zone, and if they do, they'll win this game. And I, I, I don't know. I know it's in Michigan's house. I don't see Michigan winning the game. Ohio State is just better than them, but this is another one of those trap scenarios where I think obviously the team coming into Michigan is better. Whew. But Michigan in their house, I think they have a chance. Um, so yeah, that's gonna be the second half of the college football season. The matchups to watch. Obviously, there's plenty of other matchups in good weeks. Um, this is gonna be a good college football season. The parity that NIL has created, despite all the problems and complaints that are coming around about NIL and needing to be regulated and things like that, which I do agree with. There has to be some kind of regulations, or these kids are gonna run rampant. Um, I don't know. It's brought about parity in the sport. We just saw Indiana win the national championship and have a perfect season. And I like that. I like that a lot. Um, I just think you know the parity that's created makes the sport more enticing to watch. Obviously more interesting, and you know helps every fan base in college football. It offers the opportunity for smaller schools to make the playoffs, go on Cinderella runs. I mean, truthfully, was Tulane ever going to make the playoffs if it was never a 12-team playoff like they did last year? I mean, probably never see Tulane, a school like Tulane, get into the playoffs. But they did, and that's something that that team got to enjoy. Um, that fan base, that student body, something that was great for them. So yeah, very excited for this upcoming season. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. If you did and you stuck around this long, leave a comment. Let me know who your favorite matchup is for this upcoming season. Maybe the game you're most looking forward to watching of your home team. Let me know. I appreciate you guys listening. Hope you have a great day. Got a couple more episodes rolling out in the next week or two. Very excited. I will see you guys later.